Hey guys, it's Coach Brixton. I'm with my man, Dr. Joe, baby. How are you, my man? It's RX Health and Fitness. Hey, doctor, probably the biggest thing that I see working in the exercise world, okay? I know I deal with a lot of athletes in sports, but outside of that is obesity. It is probably the biggest epidemic. You know, we talked on some of our other ones about diabetes, and I think that's right behind here. But obesity is by far the biggest epidemic that is crushing the United States, not only here, but also around the world now. You know what I mean? Where it seems like everybody you turn around, everybody's obese. You look at some of the pictures I've seen from the 30s and 40s, you very rarely saw an obese person. Now, almost every single picture is an obese person. Okay? So, what is going on? Why such an uptick in this? I mean, the latest statistics I read was between 40 to 45% of adults are in the obese category. Okay? Almost 20% of youth. Now that's even more shocking to me. Now adults is horrible, but the kids shouldn't be anywhere close to that unless you have some condition. So what is going on, and why is it not being addressed the way it should be addressed that you see?
Excellent question, Dave. And I was just firing off mentally as you asked that question about how my job is to take a lot of information, but guess what? If I can't explain it where a person can understand, you're just speaking gibberish. You're speaking another language. So I often get people ask me, when it comes to my weight, what has changed? I'm eating the same things I've been eating. I'm doing the same things I've been doing. Why am I picking up weight? Why am I having trouble with weight loss? Your children, you're right, you touched on it with childhood obesity, which guess what, 40 years ago, that wasn't a thing that was talked about. But I even say, well, I'll start with the children. If you had to ask somebody, what has changed over the last 40 years with kids? Think about school, recess. They used to be an hour a day. Kids look forward to that, whether they were exercising at home or not. But recess, almost an hour a day you could count on 5 days a week. If your child was going to school, there was just unrestricted physical activity play. That has now been cut down to maybe 15 minutes. Some schools have cut it out altogether. Some have made it now, hey, your gym class once a week for a half an hour counts as your recess or physical activity, check mark, good job. And some schools don't have it all together. Okay? So that's at the school level. Then think about it, Dave, when we were kids, I didn't have to schedule a play date to be active. I just had to walk home, and guess what? He's coming out his door. He knew what time she's coming out her door. Hey, let's play a basketball game. Let's play backyard football. Let's play backyard soccer. Let's ride our bikes. It was activity and activity and activity. And hey, it was a punishment. You couldn't go out and do that unless you had your homework done. So guess what I'm going to do? Get my homework done so I can be active. Now after school, if you test the muscles in the kids' hands, whether it's a controller or guess what? Cell phone, how much are they moving? What has changed? Okay? That's just touching on the activity. Then, think about with diet. Okay? What are kids eating before school? Parents, I understand, things have changed where now, you may not have the traditional breadwinner homemaker. They both have to be breadwinners because, things have changed around us. That, are the kids able to get that home cooked time breakfast prepared, or has it because of times changed to grab and go? The lunches at school, are they still meeting the criteria? You see now articles and headlines talking about all the processing going on in the kids' lunch. So what you used to never have to worry about for a child, now is now that's not something you can trust being done. Then the same thing, after school dietary. So that's just for the kids. So that's just plain and simple. What has changed with the children? Have their genetics changed? Are they genetically modified over these years? Is there some sort of genetic drift, as we call it in the cell biology world? No, that's more of an environmental drift. Okay? Parents, adults, right? Nothing has changed. I'm eating the same thing that I did before. Okay? But even one step before, you're right. Most lunchtime, most had lunchtime, they would go walk. Okay, some would walk to work. a grocery store. People were walking more to their grocery store. You go and you still see a lot of these European countries, people are still doing those things. They're still more active on average than the average American when it comes to steps per day. Okay, we actually pale in comparison, only getting 10% of what most are getting on a daily basis. Okay, gym has been, or exercise, not physical activity. That's another big thing, if I don't forget before the end. There's a big difference between exercise and physical activity. But exercise, how often is a person getting that? When I tell a person, hey, the recommendation is for 45 to 60 minutes of physical activity, exercise, not physical activity, 4 or more days a week, person looks at you like, they look at me two ways. One, I'm already active. That's right, I'm already doing that. It's physical activity. But exercise, when you explain to them what exercise is, whoa, where do I find the time to do that? No, I never did that before. You're right. This has caught up with you. That's what's changed. You're right. Nothing has changed. Your body is catching up and adapting to you. Okay? The higher we work up on the corporate ladder, if you think about a person, what we think about with blue collar, white collar work styles, okay? A person that we think, we're moving up higher and higher. The higher we move up, guess what? The less we do. We have more meetings. I work 12 hours a day as a physician, love my job, but guess what? I maybe take 10 steps the whole day. I try to stand the whole day to just keep moving, which is why, guess what? I have to exercise every day, but 1 day a week to, guess what? Balance out those changes. Or guess what? Something's going to change over time, even though, guess what? You're doing a good thing as a health provider, right? Everyone's health is taken care of, but guess what? Yours. So, those things we have to keep in mind. When it does come to obesity, you're right. What has changed? There's less walking. I often give an example. You go by we're in Central PA here. You go by any gym on a Friday between 4 and 6, you can have whatever machine. You can have probably the whole gym to yourself. Not Dave's gym, but most gyms. You can have the whole gym to yourself, okay? You go by every restaurant. There's a birthday. What do? We eat. There's a graduation. Let's get together for dinner. There's a funeral. Where's the repast? There's a baptism. We eat. We celebrate, especially as Americans, with food all the time. Not to say that's a bad thing, but spoke before on moderation. How you ever talk to somebody and say, guess what? Oh my goodness, my child just got baptized. Great, let's go for a walk and celebrate. They'll look at you like, what planet are you from? We don't do those things. Don't even walk to church where people used to. Yeah, we still go, most, and drive. Yep. But what has changed? We have slowed down. We have consumed different or more. So that is what has led to obesity. And why is that such an important factor? Obesity accelerates everything. I explained to a person. It accelerates everything, Dave. Mm-hmm. If you think about obesity in the middle, it accelerates a person's risk of heart disease, hypertension, stroke risk, high cholesterol, diabetes associated, okay? And all these autoimmune conditions related to a person's immune system. Inflammation is higher with obesity, okay? Arthritis, arthritis, whether autoimmune or osteo-related, osteoarthritis. Obesity accelerates. They even see with cancer, okay? Cancer responses to treatment or cancer rates, period, higher with obesity, okay? If it doesn't take a rocket science, if you're able to put the common denominator and say obesity is tied to all of these things, how can we wipe out or how can we hit the source? Obesity, right? Think about a seesaw, obesity, okay? There's the seesaw in the middle and the pivot. On one side on that seesaw, here you have intake, okay? Here you have output, okay? Here's the seesaw, okay? If we're rocking on one side more than the other, if this side over here is your intake, okay, or your intake is high, guess what? Your output is low. Guess what that's going to equate to? A shift. Okay, we're unbalanced. That's what's shifting to obesity. Hey, how many people their intake matches their output? That would keep you at break even, right? No problem. If our intake goes down, guess what happens with that seesaw? And expenditure goes up. Guess what? We're on a decline there now. So I often tell a person there's two things you really got to focus on when it comes to how much are you taking in, how much are you burning and put it out. Exercise, we know if a person's diet doesn't change, you're going to burn out more. You're going to burn off more, not burn out more. You're going to burn off more. Okay, you might mentally burn out more because you're not seeing the results you want because of what you're still putting in. But the other side is also, hey, what do we do? You know, we often encourage a lot of athletes. 80% of your results is what you do or do not do in the kitchen. 20% is what you do when you're working. So if we know how important that is, so it relates.
That's huge, and I think that's important because obesity leads, like you mentioned, to so many different problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was reading up, and you know this, 14 of the 15 most common illnesses or diseases or whatever you want to call it come from inflammation. A lot of that inflammation is built upon what you eat.
Mm-hmm.
And obesity, in my honest opinion, a lot of times is an inflammational process. There's something wrong inflammationally. Your body's inflamed. So how do we reduce that? How do we get it down? How do we do all those things? And I think that's key. And I think you're on top of it.
Yes.
I mean, look at the way you take care of yourself. You know what I mean? So what you do is you put in the 12-hour, 14-hour days and still have other work, and you have two, great kids, and a great wife, all this kind of stuff. So you got to balance all this stuff and still take care of your body because you got to be here. And that's what I think a lot of parents forget. They neglect it. Well, I'm all about my kids. I'm all about my kids. That's great, but if you're not there 100% for your kids, then you're not all about your kids. You got to be able to do that. And that's what I stress with parents all the time when I see them sitting in their car when their kids are working out, and I see them 10, 15, 20 pounds overweight. And I'm like, what are you doing? Get in here with them. Get in here and work out. Get your body right.
Go for that walk, jog while they're
and
there.
It doesn't matter how cold it is. Actually, walking in the cold is actually better for you because your body's going to burn more because it has to tighten up a little bit. It has to contract more, and it actually burns more calories as you're doing that compared to a walk in the summertime. People don't know that, but that's what happens. So listen, this is RX Health and Fitness. We work with people, like you said, you describe it best as doctor-based, physician-based, with prescription of exercise. And I think that's the key because we're working in tandem. Instead of being separate like it's been forever, okay? The medical community always sat over here. The exercise community sat over here. And nobody ever worked together. This is working together. Now we know. Now we can really dive in head first and get people right. Get them on the right path that they need to do. And that's what we're all about here. So, guys, reach out to us. All the information is below. But reach out to us. Set up a consult. Set up an evaluation. We'll get you going. Dr. Joe's the man. Love this guy. He knows what's going on, so he can definitely help you out. We work this. The guys here are awesome. They know exactly what they're doing, and they'll break it down for you, and they'll make you feel comfortable. This isn't a high stress, everybody's throwing 10,000 pounds around. We got to feel intimidated. This is about getting you to where you need to be. All right, so that's what it's all about. So reach out to us, guys. Continue to check out all our other videos, all right, on all the other topics that we're discussing. We talk about diabetes and a bunch of other things, blood work, why you should get them, what this whole system is about. You can actually go see our introduction video that we did before on why we came up with this concept and why it's so important. So reach out, guys. We'd love to hear from you. Have yourself a blessed day. Dr. Joe, always a pleasure, buddy. Thanks, guys.
All right.